Hello YouTubers out there, this is Jerry Saravia at the movies. So today we're taking a look at a 1955 Western called Man with the Gun. Not to be confused with a different film called Man with a Gun. And this stars Robert Mitchum. He had just gotten out of his contract with RKO at this time. And the film was distributed. This is his first film after he ended that contract. This is distributed through United Artists. Man with a Gun is one of Robert Mitchum's probably best westerns, but I can't say for sure because I haven't seen all of them. Prior to this film, he made already 19 westerns, including Track of the Cat. And westerns, of course, were a big deal back in the 50s, so there were several westerns released in 1955, not the least of which includes The Violent Men with Glenn Ford, and my favorite of that year, Bad Day at Black Rock with Spencer Tracy, a really great film. Man with a Gun is really your typical Western. I mean, there's nothing here that you haven't heard before. Basically, Mitchum plays a character named Clint Tollinger. He comes into this town called Sheridan City, which looks like really just any other Western town that you may have seen a million times before, of course. And as he is in this town, he is trying to get back together with Nellie Bain, who runs the Palace Hotel, which has a bunch of dance hall gals and presumably prostitutes. One of them played in an uncredited role by Angie Dickinson. They had a topsy-turvy relationship, to say the least, Clint and Nellie. Nellie played by Jan Sterling. They had a split, I guess, a good 3 years prior to him arriving back in town, and she really is not very fond of what it is he does for a living. He's a gunslinger, and his past, basically, his father chose not to arm himself against some men, and he witnessed this, and his father was shot before his eyes. So Clint Tollinger has become an expert marksman in his own way. He's very good with a gun, to say the least. But his job is really to go to certain communities and take over where law and order has virtually evaporated. So he is the, as they refer to in the film, the town tamer. A peacemaker, but he plays by his own rules. Basically, if you come into his town, you are not to be armed with a gun or you might get shot. So already, Mitchum means business. As we know, Robert Mitchum always means business. That same year, 1955, he was in a film which I'm not very fond of, but I definitely agree he's great in it, called The Night of the Hunter. He has to deal with Nellie, who doesn't want anything to do with him, and admits to him that something happened to their young daughter from years ago, and also trying to deal with this town that's having an issue with a Dade Holman. So it's this big fat guy that you only really see until the end of the picture, who is running things in town, and he doesn't want any new homesteaders. One of them, of course, being Jeff Castle, played by John Lupton, and a pretty good performance. He is building a house for him and his bride to be, Stella, played by Karen Sharp. And she's the daughter of a blacksmith in town, Saul Atkins, in a very good performance by Emil Meyer, who basically convinces, in the town council, that they need Clint Tollinger to deal with this lack of law and order in town, not to mention dealing with Dade Holman. So this is a lot for Clint Tollinger to have to deal with and presumably come up as victorious over the town. But certain things happen, and unusual for a Western, at least for me. I've not seen anything quite like what Tollinger does to the Palace Hotel. He basically burns it down, and he does kill a few of Dade Holman's hired men. But burning down the Palace Hotel, it was a little odd. I didn't quite understand why that happened, why he felt he needed to do it. It didn't make sense to me, but there is a suspenseful gunfight scene towards the end, which is it's not done in a typical manner, I'll put it that way, for most Westerns. Basically, I enjoy the film a lot. There's also, by the way, Henry Hull, who plays a marshal in the picture, who seems rather powerless next to Robert Mitchum. Henry Hull you would know best, at least I do, from 1935's Werewolf of London. Overall, I like the film, but I think it's nothing that you haven't seen before. However, it is very well done, very well made, and Robert Mitchum just makes all the difference. Really, for me, my main thing with Westerns is, as long as the story is somewhat interesting, and this one is, because it's a lot of obstacles to overcome in basically an hour and 23 minutes of runtime, if the story is interesting enough, and usually this type of story has been told before, several times, and you have somebody coming in to be a peacemaker, and the only way to achieve that peace is to kill people who don't want him in there, and certainly that kind of law and order, then the film works very well, as long as it's well cast. And this is a very well cast picture. All the actors in it are memorable, including this ruthless land baron that you see towards the end, Holman, played by Joe Barry. It's remarkable because he doesn't have a word of dialogue, and this is the guy that we've been hearing about through the entire movie. So I'm giving away the ending, but that's okay. It's been quite some time since 1955. So I like the picture a lot. It's not one of the best Westerns ever made, but it is certainly a good one and worth checking out, particularly for Robert Mitchum. He stands tall above everyone else in this film, and there's a good cast, though, there to support him and give him that leverage of a larger-than-life figure. So he handles it very well, and the ending, well, slightly cutesy how it ends, just a little bit after this climatic shootout, but nonetheless, it works. It's worth checking out. Man with the Gun. This was a debut by the director. The script is from Richard Wilson, but it's his debut as a director. He's somebody that initially had collaborated with Orson Welles at the Mercury Theater. Other films he has done include Al Capone in 1959 and Invitation to a Gunfighter 1964. And this was also the first producing credit for Samuel Goldwyn Jr. So it's interesting to check out. So definitely watch Man with the Gun, not a gun, different movie, with Robert Mitchum. Definitely worth checking out. And those are my thoughts on it. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to my channel. And this is Jerry at the Movies, signing off.